She just wanted a loaf of bread to celebrate her own birthday, but was met with coldness and denial. When all seemed lost, a stranger interrupted fate with a silent gesture. If this beautiful story of overcoming and love interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you are watching us from. The March sun beat down on the streets of Chicago as Isabella walked barefoot along Michigan Avenue. Her dirty little feet contrasted with the clean asphalt, and in the palm of her small right hand she carefully held a 50-cent coin. To anyone passing by, it was worth almost nothing. To her, it was a treasure she had found among the dry leaves of Grant Park the previous morning. 7 years old that very day, but there was no cake, no candles, no birthday wishes. Only the hunger that tightened her skinny stomach, and the hope that the little coin could buy something sweet, something that would make this special day different from the others. Isabella couldn't remember the last birthday she had celebrated. In fact, she barely remembered much before the temporary shelters and cold nights sleeping in store doorways. For 3 months, since leaving the last overcrowded shelter, she had learned to survive alone on the streets of America's third-largest city. She knew every corner where she could find leftover food, every place she could hide from the rain, every person who would chase her away with shouts and threats. But on that day, her birthday, she wanted to experience something different. She wanted to feel what it was like to buy something with her own money, even if it was just a piece of candy. The Whole Foods market on North Avenue seemed like a palace when she passed through the automatic glass doors. The cold air conditioning made her sun-tanned skin shiver, and her brown eyes widened at such abundance. Endless aisles filled with colorful products, bright white lights that didn't flicker like those on the street, the smell of cleanliness and organization. It was like entering another world, a world where people dressed in clean clothes pushed carts full of food. Isabella walked slowly, absorbing every detail. She passed the fruit section, and her stomach growled at the sight of shiny red apples. She continued to the bakery, where the aroma of fresh bread made her close her eyes and breathe deeply. There was her goal, sweet pastries arranged in wicker baskets with tags showing the prices. She analyzed each option with an expert's care. The sugar bread cost $1.20. The cream-filled donut cost $2. But there in the right corner was a small honey bun for 60 cents. Her eyes sparkled. It was 10 cents more than she had, but maybe the cashier would take pity on a girl on her birthday. With delicate movements, she picked up the honey bun and held it against her chest as if it were the most precious gift in the world. She walked toward the checkout, and with each step, she felt her heart beat faster. The people in line looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. A gray-haired lady muttered something about children loose in the store, and a man in a blue suit looked away when she passed by him. But Isabella was determined. It was her birthday, and she deserved that small moment of happiness. The line moved slowly. A young mother paid for her baby's diapers. A mustached gentleman argued about the price of tomatoes. A teenage girl bought sodas for a party. And there stood Isabella, a 7-year-old girl barefoot, in clothes dirty from 3 days of wear, holding a honey bun and a 50-cent coin. When it was finally her turn, the cashier, a woman in her 40s with black hair tied in a ponytail, and the store's blue uniform, looked at her with an expression that mixed surprise and impatience. Her name tag showed Sandra. "Just this, sweetie?" Sandra asked, more out of protocol than kindness. Isabella nodded and placed the honey bun on the counter with great care. Then she opened her hand and showed the coin, as if offering a rare jewel. "That's 60 cents, said Sandra, scanning the barcode. "I have 50, Isabella replied, her voice small but full of hope. "It's my birthday today. I'm 7. Sandra looked at the girl, then at the coin, then at the bun. She sighed and shook her head. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but I can't. It needs to be the exact amount. Those are the store rules." "But it's just 10 cents, insisted Isabella, her eyes beginning to shine with held-back tears. "I looked really hard to find this coin. It's my birthday. I understand, but I can't do anything about it. If I let it slide this time, then everyone will want a discount," Sandra explained, already picking up the bun to return it to the basket. At that moment, Isabella felt the world collapse. It wasn't just about the honey bun. It was about being rejected once again, about not being important enough, about discovering that not even on her birthday did she deserve a small kindness. The tears she was trying to hold back began to roll down her dirty cheeks. She was about to turn away and leave with her head down when a deep, gentle voice sounded behind her. "You can put it on my card." Isabella turned, startled, and saw a tall man in his mid-40s, with brown hair showing a few grey strands at the temples, wearing a well-tailored grey suit. His eyes were blue and had a kind expression that she wasn't used to seeing directed at her. "Excuse me, sir?" asked Sandra, confused. "The girl's bun." "You can put it on my account," repeated the man, approaching the counter. "And you can also add that chocolate cupcake over there. A milk and those strawberries," he said, pointing to a tray of berries. Isabella stood frozen. No one had ever done anything like this for her. She looked at the man with a mixture of fear and gratitude, not knowing if this was real or if she was dreaming. The man knelt down to be at her eye level. "Hi, what's your name?" "Isabella," she replied in a whisper. "Isabella is a very beautiful name. I'm Richard. I heard you say it's your birthday today. How old are you turning?" "7," she answered, still wary, but something in his voice made her feel safer. 7 years. That's very important. Every birthday deserves to be celebrated," said Richard with a sincere smile. "Are you here alone?" Isabella nodded, not knowing quite what to say. She was used to adults who pushed her away, who yelled, who treated her like a problem. Richard was different. He looked her in the eyes as if she were a real person, not just a street girl. Sandra finished bagging the purchases in a plastic bag and handed it to Isabella, who received it with both hands, still not believing what was happening. "Thank you," she mumbled, hugging the bag against her chest. "You're welcome, Isabella. Every girl deserves a present on her birthday." They walked together toward the store exit. Richard didn't ask invasive questions, didn't show pity. He just walked beside her, respecting her pace. When they got outside, he stopped and turned to her. "Isabella, can I ask you a question? Where are your parents?" The question she feared. The question that always made her feel different, wrong, incomplete. "I don't have anyone anymore," she answered softly, looking at the ground. "Where do you live?" "In different places. Sometimes in the shelter, sometimes on the street," she admitted, preparing herself to see his expression change, for him to move away as everyone did. But Richard didn't move away. Instead, he remained silent for a few moments, as if processing what he had just heard. Then he knelt down again to be at her level. "Isabella, would you like me to help you? Not just with food, but really, a safe place to sleep, school, clean clothes, a chance to have a different life." She looked at him suspiciously. "Why? You don't even know me." "Because every child deserves a chance, and because today is your birthday, and birthdays are about new beginnings." Richard took his cell phone from his pocket and made a quick call. Isabella couldn't understand the entire conversation, but she heard words like social worker, temporary shelter, and documents. When he hung up, he smiled at her. "Isabella, I talked to a friend of mine who works with children in situations like yours. She's going to meet us here in 20 minutes. If you want, we can start changing your life today. What do you think?" For the first time in a long time, Isabella felt something she had forgotten how it felt. Hope. But along with hope came fear. What if it was just another empty promise? What if he changed his mind? What if it was some kind of trap? "I don't know," she answered honestly. "It's okay not to know. It's a big decision. But I'll stay here with you while you decide. I won't leave." And so they sat there on the bench in front of the market, Isabella eating her honey bun and chocolate cupcake, while Richard patiently awaited her answer. She observed this strange man, who had appeared out of nowhere on her birthday, who had paid for her food without asking for anything in return, who talked to her as if her opinions mattered. "Do you have children?" she asked suddenly. "I have a daughter, yes. She's 15, her name is Madison." "And would she be angry if you helped me?" Richard chuckled softly. "I think she would be proud of me. Madison has a very big heart, just like you." Isabella finished her snack and looked at Richard. There was something about him that made her feel she could trust him, something she couldn't explain but felt deep in her heart. Maybe it was the way he talked to her, or how he didn't show pity, only respect. Maybe it was the fact that he hadn't tried to touch her without permission or make grand promises. "Okay," she said finally. "I accept your help." A smile lit up Richard's face. "Are you sure?" "I am. But if you hurt me or leave me somewhere bad, I'll run away." "I won't hurt you, Isabella. And if at any point you don't feel safe, you can leave. It will always be your choice." 20 minutes later, a woman in her 50s with grey hair and round glasses approached them. She wore simple but clean clothes and carried a brown leather briefcase. "Richard?" she asked. "Carmen, good to see you." "This is Isabella." Carmen crouched in front of the girl and smiled. "Hi, Isabella. I'm Carmen, and I work helping children like you. Richard told me about your situation. Would you like to talk with me?" Isabella looked at Richard, who nodded encouragingly. "You can trust Carmen. She's one of the kindest people I know." And so began a conversation that would forever change Isabella's life. Carmen explained about the placement process, about the documents they would need to provide, about school and medical care. Richard remained there throughout the conversation, translating the more difficult words for Isabella and ensuring she understood each step. When the sun began to set over Chicago, Isabella was in the back seat of Carmen's car, heading toward a new life. Through the window, she saw the streets she knew so well passing behind, along with a phase of her existence that was ending. Richard had promised to visit her the next day, and she believed him. There was something about that man that told her he would keep his promise, that he wouldn't disappear like so many others who had made empty promises. Isabella's first hot shower in her new life lasted nearly an hour. Carmen waited patiently outside the bathroom door at the shelter home, listening to the sound of running water and occasionally small laughs of joy. When the girl finally came out, wrapped in a soft white towel, her clean brown hair shining in the hallway light. "How was it?" asked Carmen, smiling. "It was the most wonderful thing in the world," replied Isabella, still amazed. "The water gets really hot, and there's soap that smells like flowers." The St. Teresa's shelter home was located in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, a two-story building with a front garden and backyard. Unlike the overcrowded shelters Isabella had been through, only 6 children lived there, all cared for by Sister Lucy, a 60-year-old woman who had dedicated her life to sheltering minors in vulnerable situations. "Isabella, come meet the others," said Sister Lucy, a short woman with honey-colored eyes and a constant smile. "But first, let's choose your clothes." The house wardrobe had pieces donated by families from the region. Isabella chose blue jeans, a pink blouse with a butterfly design, and a pair of white sneakers that fit her feet perfectly. For the first time in months, she looked in the mirror and smiled at her own image. At dinner, she met the other residents of the house. There was Caleb, 5 years old, who had arrived there after his grandmother became too ill to care for him. Melissa, 9, quiet and observant, who drew in all her free moments. The twins, Peter and Paul, 8 years old, inseparable and full of energy. And Anna Claire, 12, who had been in the house for 2 years and helped Sister Lucy with household chores. "You're going to sleep in the room with us," said Anna Claire, showing the dormitory she would share with Melissa and now with Isabella. "The bed by the window is yours. I chose it because a nice little sun comes in during the morning." That first night, Isabella took a long time to fall asleep, not from fear or discomfort, but because everything was so different from what she was used to. The mattress was soft. She had a real pillow, a warm blanket. Through the window, she could see the city lights, but she felt safe, protected by solid walls and the presence of the other children. The next morning, she was awakened by the smell of toasted French bread. At breakfast, for the first time in a long time, Isabella ate until she was satisfied. Bread with butter, chocolate milk, banana, and even a small piece of cheese. Sister Lucy watched with satisfaction as the girl savored each bite. "Isabella," said the nun, "this morning you're going to the doctor for some tests, and in the afternoon, a special person is coming to visit you." Isabella's heart jumped. "Is it Richard?" "Yes, he promised he would come, didn't he?" The doctor confirmed what everyone already suspected. Isabella was malnourished, had some vitamin deficiencies, and would need nutritional monitoring. But nothing that a few months of good food and care wouldn't solve. She received some vaccines that were overdue and vitamins to take every day. When they returned to the shelter home, Richard was already there, talking with Sister Lucy in the garden. He wore simpler clothes than the day before, a light blue shirt and jeans, but maintained the same gentle expression that had won Isabella's trust. "Hi, Isabella. How was your first night here?" he asked, getting up from the bench where he was sitting. "It was very good. I slept in a real bed and had breakfast with warm bread," she replied, running to him. "How wonderful! And how are the other friends?" Isabella took him to see the whole house, introduced each of the children and showed him her new room. Richard listened to everything with genuine attention, asking questions about every detail, showing real interest in the girl's new routine. "Isabella," he said when they sat in the backyard to talk, "I brought some things for you." From the bag he was carrying, Richard took out children's storybooks, a notebook with a colourful cover, coloured pencils, and a cloth doll with a yellow dress. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Is all this mine?" "All yours." "The doll's name is Hope. I thought you two would get along well." Isabella hugged the doll to her chest and for the first time since they met, ran to hug Richard. He returned the hug carefully, moved by the girl's trust. "Richard," she said, still hugging him, "why did you help me? Why were you different from other people?" He pulled back a bit to look into her eyes. "You know, Isabella, when I saw you in that market, I remembered when I was a child. My family didn't have much money, and sometimes I wanted things I couldn't afford. One day, a teacher of mine paid for my lunch at school when I had forgotten the money at home. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot to me. I think we should always try to be the person we would like to appear in our lives when we need help. And you have a daughter, right? What is she like?" Richard's face lit up. "Madison is a very special girl. She studies hard, likes to read, and always wants to help other people. Actually," he hesitated for a moment, "I talked to her about you yesterday. She was very happy to know that I helped you, and she said she would very much like to meet you. She won't be angry with me?" "Angry? Why would she be?" "Because you're spending money on me, giving me attention." "Sometimes people get jealous." Richard shook his head. "Madison isn't like that. She has a very big heart. In fact, she wants to invite you to our house next weekend if you want, and if Sister Lucy allows it." Isabella was excited and nervous at the same time. "Is your house very big?" "It's a normal house, but it has a garden where Madison planted flowers and she loves to show them to people." "Do you like flowers?" "I never had flowers of my own, but I think they're beautiful." "Then you'll like Madison's garden." That same day, Sister Lucy talked to Isabella about school. She would need to take an assessment to determine which grade she could be enrolled in, since she had missed a lot of school time. Richard offered to pay for the school supplies and uniform. "But I don't know how to read properly," admitted Isabella. "Worried. That's exactly why you need to learn," said Sister Lucy. "Anna Claire can help you with your homework, and I also know a little bit of math. What if I can't keep up with the other students?" Richard approached her. "Isabella, you're very intelligent. Just look at how you survived alone on the streets for so long. If you manage that, you can learn anything you want. And if you need extra help, I can hire a private tutor for you." This man's generosity continued to surprise Isabella. In less than 24 hours, her life had completely changed. She had a place to sleep, food to eat, clean clothes, books, toys, and people who seemed to really care about her. That night, during dinner, Anna Claire asked, "Isabella, what do you want to be when you grow up?" The question caught her by surprise. No one had ever asked her that. For years, her only goal had been to survive until the next day. Thinking about the future was a luxury she couldn't afford. "I never thought about it," she admitted. "I want to be a doctor," said Melissa shyly, "to take care of sick children." "I want to be a soccer player," said Peter. "And I want to be a soccer coach," added Paul. "I want to be a cook," said Anna Claire, "to make tasty food for people who are hungry." Caleb, the youngest, said he wanted to be a firefighter to save kittens. Isabella was thoughtful. "I think I want to help children like me, children who are alone on the street." Sister Lucy smiled. "That's very beautiful, Isabella. There are many ways to help. You could be a social worker, psychologist, teacher, or even create an institution to care for children." "Like what you do?" "It could be. But first you need to study hard to learn how to do this in the best way." That night, before going to sleep, Isabella hugged her Hope doll and looked out the bedroom window. The city lights were still out there, but now she was inside, safe and warm. She thought of Richard, of his unexpected kindness, of how a simple gesture at the market had changed everything. For the first time in a long time, she made plans for the next day. She would have breakfast, play with the other children, maybe draw a little with Melissa, and in the afternoon, Richard had promised to bring new books for her to practice reading. "Hope," she whispered to the doll, "I think our life is going to be really good from now on." and through the bedroom window, as if the universe was responding, a star shone brighter in the Chicago sky. The next day, Isabella woke up early, even before the sun had fully risen. Not from anxiety or fear, as happened when she slept on the street, but from good anticipation. She had so many new things to discover, so many possibilities opening up before her. During breakfast, Sister Lucy announced that they would receive a special visit that day. The principal of the neighborhood public school would come to talk with Isabella about her enrollment. "I'm afraid I won't know how to answer the questions," confessed Isabella. "You don't need to know everything now," reassured Anna Claire. "School is a place to learn, not to already know." The principal, Mrs. Bennett, was a black woman in her 50s, with grey hair always pulled back in an impeccable bun and reading glasses hanging around her neck. She had a reputation for being strict but fair, and for being especially dedicated to students who needed the most support. "So you're Isabella," she said, sitting in the living room of the shelter home. "Richard called me yesterday and told me a little about your story. He said you're a very brave girl." Isabella blushed. She wasn't used to compliments yet. "I'm going to ask some simple questions, just to know how I can best help you at school. Is that okay?" For half an hour, Mrs. Bennett talked with Isabella. She asked her to draw a house, write her name, count to 100, do simple addition and subtraction problems. Isabella did better than expected in math, but had difficulties with letters. "You have a very good intelligence, Isabella. You just need to practice reading and writing more. I'm going to put you in second grade, but with tutoring 3 times a week. In a few months, you'll be at the same level as the other students." When Mrs. Bennett left, Isabella ran to tell the news to the others. Peter and Paul were excited because they studied at the same school, and Anna Claire promised to help her with homework every day. In the afternoon, as promised, Richard appeared with more books and with a surprise Madison. His daughter was with him. Madison was a tall, thin teenager with straight brown hair down to her shoulders, blue eyes like her father's, and a shy but sincere smile. She wore a simple dress and sandals and carried a school backpack. "Hi, Isabella." "I'm Madison. My dad told me a lot about you," she said, approaching carefully. Isabella suddenly became shy. Madison seemed so different from her, so neat, so educated. Would she really want to meet her? Or was she there just because her father asked? As if reading her thoughts, Madison knelt down and said, "I brought something for you. I hope you like it." From her backpack, she took out a fairy tale book with colorful illustrations and a hardcover. "This was my favorite book when I was your age, so I wanted you to have it." Isabella took the book carefully as if it were made of crystal. "But it's your favorite book. That's exactly why I want to give it to you. Good books need to be shared. And when you learn to read better, you can tell me which story you liked the most." It was at this moment that Isabella realized that Madison was truly special, as Richard had said. There was no pretense in her kindness, just genuine goodness. "Want to see my room?" asked Isabella, gaining courage. "Sure." The 2 girls went up to the room, and Isabella proudly showed her bed, her new books, her Hope doll. Madison listened to everything with real interest, asking questions about the routine of the shelter home and about the other residents. "Don't you miss having a room all to yourself?" asked Madison. "No, actually, I like sharing. When I slept on the street, the night was very scary because I was alone. Now if I wake up afraid, I can hear Anna Claire and Melissa breathing, and I know I'm not alone anymore." Madison became thoughtful. "I've had my own room forever, but I get scared sometimes too, especially when my dad travels for work." "Does your dad travel a lot?" "Sometimes. He has a consulting company, and he needs to travel to other cities for work. But he always calls every day when he's away." Isabella felt a pang of worry. What if Richard got tired of helping her? What if he traveled and forgot about her? As if sensing her concern, Madison said, "Isabella, my dad never forgets people who are important to him, and you've become important to him. Yesterday he wouldn't stop talking about how brave you were, how intelligent and determined." "Did he really say that?" "He did. And you know something. He was very emotional yesterday. When he came home after meeting you, his eyes were red as if he had been crying. Do you think he was sad because of me?" "Not sad. Emotional. My dad has a very big heart, and when he sees someone needing help, he can't stand still. It was like that when he adopted me, too." Isabella stopped what she was doing and looked at Madison. "You're adopted?" "Yes, my dad adopted me when I was 3 years old. My biological parents, well, they couldn't take care of me. Richard was a friend of my biological mother, and when she asked him to take care of me for a while, he accepted. In the end, that time became forever. And what's it like to be his daughter?" Madison's face lit up. "It's wonderful. He's the best dad in the world. He always supported me in everything, never made me feel different for being adopted. He taught me that family isn't just who has the same blood, but who really cares about you." Isabella processed this information. Richard had already saved a girl before. He had already transformed one life, just as he was doing with her. "Madison," she asked softly, "do you think he would like to be my dad too?" The question came out before she could control herself. Madison looked at her with affection and held her hands. "Isabella, I think you've already become very special to him. But these things take time. The important thing is that whatever happens, you'll always have our family as support, always." At that moment, they heard Richard's voice downstairs, calling them for a snack. The two went down hand in hand, and Isabella felt that she had gained not only a protector, but also an older sister. During the snack, Richard observed the interaction between the girls with satisfaction. Madison was helping Isabella read some words from the book she had given as a gift, and the two laughed together when Isabella managed to decipher an entire sentence. "Dad," Madison said suddenly, "can I ask a question?" "Of course, sweetie. Can Isabella come to our house on Saturday? I want to show her my garden, and we can watch a movie together." Richard looked at Sister Lucy, who nodded with approval. "If Isabella wants to, of course she can." Isabella was radiant. "Can I really?" "Yes, you can. How about we leave here at 9 in the morning? We can have lunch at our house, you can see the whole house, play with Madison, and in the afternoon I'll bring you back." "Are you going to cook?" asked Madison, joking. "I'll order Japanese food," laughed Richard. "Isabella, have you ever eaten Japanese food?" She shook her head. "Then it will be a new experience. Madison loves sushi." That night, Isabella could hardly sleep from so much excitement. She was going to see Richard and Madison's house. She was going to try Japanese food. She was going to spend an entire day as if she were part of the family. It was almost too good to be true. "Hope," she whispered to the doll, "I think we're living a real fairy tale." And as Chicago slept outside, Isabella smiled in the dark, planning what she would talk about with Madison the next day, imagining what the house would be like, where perhaps someday she might call home. Saturday dawned with the bluest sky Isabella had ever seen in Chicago. She woke up at 6 in the morning, 2 hours before the agreed time, and stayed looking out the bedroom window, imagining what Richard and Madison's house would be like. She had chosen her best outfit the night before, the light blue dress that Sister Lucy had set aside for special occasions, the white sandals that Anna Claire had lent her, and a yellow ribbon in her hair that Melissa had insisted looked lovely on her. "You're more dressed up than a princess," joked Anna Claire when they went down for breakfast. "It's just that I've never been to anyone's house to visit," admitted Isabella, nervous. "What if I do something wrong? What if I drop or break something?" Sister Lucy approached her with her usual maternal smile. "Isabella, you'll be yourself, and that's more than enough. Richard and Madison already like you the way you are." At 9 o'clock sharp, Richard arrived driving a silver Honda Civic. Isabella had never ridden in a private car before, always on buses or in social services vehicles. When Richard opened the door for her to get in, she was amazed by the leather seats, the air conditioning, the soft music playing on the stereo. "Comfortable?" asked Richard, adjusting her seatbelt. "Your car is very beautiful," she said, running her hand over the dashboard. "Thank you. Would you like to choose a song for us to listen to on the way?" During the 20-minute journey to the Wicker Park neighborhood, Richard told funny stories about Madison when she was little, and Isabella laughed so much that she completely forgot about being nervous. When they stopped in front of a single-story house with a garden in front, Isabella's eyes widened. The house was painted white with blue details, had a covered porch with a hammock, and the garden was a true spectacle of colors. Red roses, white daisies, small sunflowers, and in the center a blueberry bush loaded with fruit. "Is this where you live?" asked Isabella, impressed. "This is it. How about we get to know the outside first?" Madison appeared on the porch wearing jean shorts and a yellow blouse with her hair tied in a casual ponytail. She waved enthusiastically and ran to meet them. "Isabella, I'm so glad you came. What do you think of our house?" "It's the most beautiful house I've ever seen in my life," answered Isabella, sincere. "Wait until you see inside. Come on, I want to show you everything." The house inside was cozy without being ostentatious. The living room had comfortable sofas, a bookshelf full of books, and on the walls family photos. Richard and Madison on trips, at the beach, at birthdays, graduation. Isabella observed each photo with curiosity, trying to understand the history of that family. "This was when I graduated from elementary school," explained Madison, pointing to a photo where she appeared in uniform next to Richard. "And this one was when we went to New York last year. Do you travel a lot?" "From time to time. My dad says that traveling is a way to learn about the world. Would you like to visit other places?" Isabella had never thought about that. To her, Chicago was already immensely big. "I think so. It must be nice to see how people live in other places." Richard appeared in the living room carrying a tray with juices and cookies. "Girls, how about a snack before we see the rest of the house?" They sat on the porch, and Isabella delighted in the cold passion fruit juice and homemade cookies that, she discovered, Richard himself had made the night before. "You know how to cook?" she asked, surprised. "Some simple things. When Madison was little, I had to learn so she wouldn't go hungry," he laughed. "I'm not a chef, but I can manage in the kitchen." "He makes the best fudge in the world," said Madison, proud. "Is that true? How about we find out later?" "I have all the ingredients for us to make it together," suggested Richard. The tour of the house continued. Isabella saw the American kitchen integrated with the dining room, Richard's office full of papers and computers, the bathroom with a bathtub — she had never seen a real bathtub — and finally the bedrooms. Richard's bedroom was simple and organized, with a double bed, a dresser, and more photos scattered on the bedside table. Madison's bedroom was what impressed Isabella the most. The walls were painted light lilac. There was a white desk full of books, a large wardrobe, and the bed was covered with a floral quilt that matched the curtains. "Is this where you sleep?" asked Isabella, amazed. "Yes, do you like it?" "It's like the rooms I saw in movies on television. Very beautiful." Madison showed her books, her clothes, her stuffed animals kept on a shelf. Isabella touched everything with delicacy, as if she were afraid of breaking the spell. "Isabella," Madison said suddenly, "can I ask you a question? What was your life like before you met my dad?" It was the question that Isabella knew would come eventually. She took a deep breath and decided to be honest. "It was very difficult. I slept in different places every night, sometimes in shelters, sometimes on the street. I was very afraid, especially at night, and I was always hungry. You can't imagine how bad it is to feel real hunger." Madison was quiet, absorbing the information. But the worst wasn't the hunger or the cold. It was feeling invisible. People passed by me as if I didn't exist, or else they looked at me with disgust, as if I were something bad. Your dad was the first person who looked at me as if I were a normal girl. It must have been very scary." "It was. But you know something. Now I understand that all of that happened to bring me to you. If I hadn't gone through all that, I would never be here in this beautiful room talking with a real friend." Madison smiled and took Isabella's hand. "You're very brave. And I want you to know that now you're part of our family. You'll always be part of it." The two went down for lunch, and Richard had gone all out with the Japanese food order. Sushi, sashimi, temaki, hot rolls, yakisoba. Isabella tried everything with curiosity and was surprised to like most of the dishes. "This one's my favorite," she said, taking another piece of grilled salmon. "You have good taste," laughed Richard. "This is my favorite too." After lunch, they went to the backyard to see Madison's garden. The girl had planted each flower with her own hands, and she knew the name and history of all of them. She showed the roses she had received for her birthday 2 years before, the daisies that represented purity, the sunflowers that always turned toward the sun. "Would you like to plant a flower of your own?" asked Madison. "That way you'll always have a little piece of yourself here at home." Together, they planted a small jasmine seedling in a hand-painted clay pot. Isabella watered the little plant carefully and made a silent wish. In the afternoon, while Madison was showing some computer games, Richard called Isabella for a private conversation on the porch. "How are you feeling here?" he asked, very happy. "Your family is wonderful. Madison is like an older sister I never had. Isabella, I have a proposal to make to you, but I want you to think carefully before answering." The girl's heart raced. Could it be what she was dreaming of? "Madison and I talked a lot about you this week. We would like to start the process to adopt you. Would you like to be our real daughter?" Isabella was speechless. The tears came before the answer. She had dreamed of this moment, but never believed it was possible. You really want me to be your daughter?" "I want it very much. You've brought a special joy to our lives. You've completed our family in a way that even I didn't know was missing." And Madison agrees. It was her idea, actually. Yesterday she said to me, "Dad, Isabella needs a family and we need her. Why don't we make this official?" Isabella ran to hug Richard, crying with happiness. "I want so much to be your daughter. Very, very much. Then we'll start the paperwork on Monday. It will take a few months until everything is ready. But in the meantime, you can spend weekends here with us. And when the documents are finalized, you'll move in for good." Madison appeared on the porch and, seeing the two embracing, immediately knew what had happened. She ran to join the hug. "Welcome to the family, little sister." That afternoon they made the promised fudge. Isabella helped stir the sweet on the stove, learned the right consistency, made the balls with her hands sticky with chocolate. When she tried the first fudge ball while it was still warm, she declared it was the most delicious thing she had ever eaten in her life. "Now it's a family recipe," said Richard. "I'll teach you all the secrets." Before returning to the shelter home, Isabella asked to see the room that would be hers. Richard took her to a room that served as a storage space and explained how it would be transformed into her bedroom. "We can paint it any color you want. Choose the furniture together, decorate it your way," he explained. "Can it be pink?" she asked shyly. "It can be any color you want. Say it's your room." On the way back, Isabella sat quietly in the back seat, processing everything that had happened. In 1 week, she had gone from the streets to a loving shelter home, and now she was about to be adopted by a real family. "Richard," she said suddenly. "Yes? Can I call you Dad?" In the rearview mirror, she saw his eyes fill with tears. "Of course you can, sweetie. Nothing would make me happier." When they arrived at the shelter home, Sister Lucy immediately noticed that something special had happened. Isabella told everything, speaking hurriedly with so much enthusiasm. The other children were happy for her, especially Anna Claire, who hugged her tightly. "You deserve all this happiness," said the older girl. "And you won't forget us when you go to live in your new house, will you?" "Never." "You are my first family here. I will always remember you." That night, Isabella wrote in her new diary, a gift from Madison, about the happiest day of her life. She described every detail of the house, every taste of the Japanese food, every word of her conversation with Richard, every hug from Madison. On Monday, Richard appeared at the shelter home with Carmen, the social worker, and a lawyer specializing in adoption. They explained the whole process to Isabella, which would involve interviews, psychological evaluations, home visits, and many papers to sign. "It will take about 6 months until everything is ready," explained Mr. Thompson, the lawyer. "But don't worry, it's just bureaucracy. The most important thing, the love and the desire to form a family, is already resolved." The following weeks flew by. Isabella started studying at the new school, and with the help of tutoring classes and Madison's patients, who helped her with homework via video calls, she quickly began to stand out. Her teacher, Mrs. Regina, was impressed with her dedication. "She's an exceptional girl," she commented to Richard during a parent-teacher meeting. "Determined, intelligent, and with impressive maturity for her age. She's on the right track to recover all the lost time." Every weekend, Isabella spent time at her future parents' house. She helped Madison with the garden, learned recipes with Richard, watched movies with them on the living room sofa. Gradually, she started leaving some clothes there, some toys, creating her presence in that house. Her room began to take shape. Light pink walls, a bed with a white canopy, a desk just like Madison's, a shelf for her increasingly numerous books. Richard made sure she participated in every decision, from the color of the curtains to the shape of the rug. "It's important that you feel truly at home," he would say. "This isn't our house where you're going to live. It's our house, yours too." One July morning, exactly 5 months after the meeting at the market, Carmen arrived at the shelter home with a radiant smile and a folder full of documents. "Isabella, I have very good news for you." "Did the papers come through?" she asked, barely able to contain her anxiety. "They did. You are officially Isabella Santos Oliver, daughter of Richard Santos Oliver. The adoption has been approved." Isabella shouted with joy and ran through the yard, spreading the news to everyone. Sister Lucy cried with emotion. The other children held an improvised party. And when Richard and Madison came to pick her up definitively, it was a family celebration. "Ready to go home, sweetie?" asked Richard. "More than ready, Dad." And for the first time in her life, Isabella spoke the word Dad, knowing it was true. That she had a real family, a real home, a real future ahead of her. That night, in her pink room, surrounded by her books and toys, with Madison reading her a story before bed, and Richard saying goodnight with a kiss on her forehead, Isabella looked out the window and saw the same city lights she saw from the shelter home. But now they had a completely different meaning. They were no longer the lights of a hostile and cold city. They were the lights of the city where she had found a family, where she had discovered what it meant to be loved, where she had learned that miracles can happen in the most unexpected places. "Thank you," she whispered to the Hope doll, which now shared the bed with other stuffed animals. "Thank you for helping me find my family." And Chicago continued to shine out there, a silent witness to another love story that began with a simple 50-cent coin and the kindness of a stranger who chose not to walk past when he saw a girl in need of help. 2 years had passed since Isabella had officially become part of the Santos Oliver family. Now at 9 years old, she was unrecognizable from the barefoot and frightened girl who had tried to buy a honey bun at the market. Her brown hair was long and well cared for, always held back with colorful clips that Madison loved to choose for her. Her eyes, which once carried fear and sadness, now sparkled with intelligence and joy. At school, Isabella had become one of the best students in the 4th grade. Her determination to recover lost time impressed teachers and classmates. She participated in all activities, from the science fair to the theater plays, always with Richard and Madison in the audience, applauding proudly. "Dad, I need help with my history project," said Isabella one Thursday afternoon, entering the home office where Richard worked. "Of course, sweetie. What's the project about? I have to talk about a person I admire and explain why." "Can I talk about you?" Richard stopped typing and looked at her with surprise. "About me? Why me?" "Because you changed my life. Because you taught me that there are good people in the world. Because you showed me what it's like to have a real family." Richard's eyes filled with tears, as always happened when Isabella talked about her gratitude. "I'm sure there's someone more interesting to talk about in your project." "There's no one more interesting than you, Dad, at least not for me." That same week, during a family dinner, Madison made an announcement that left Isabella euphoric. "Dad, I received a letter today," she said, holding a white envelope with a university seal. "What letter?" asked Richard, curious. "From the University of Chicago. I got in. I'm going to study psychology." Isabella jumped from her chair and ran to hug her sister. "Maddie, that's amazing. You're going to be a real psychologist." "Yes, and you know what? I want to specialize in helping children who have gone through difficult situations like you did." Richard stood up to hug his 2 daughters. "I'm very proud of both of you. Madison, you always knew what you wanted and you worked hard to get it. And you, Isabella, are an inspiration for your sister to want to help other children." "Can I visit your college, Maddie?" asked Isabella, excited. "Of course you can. By the time I graduate, you'll already be thinking about what course you want to take, too." That conversation planted a seed in Isabella's mind. She began to think seriously about her future, about how she could help other children who were going through what she had experienced. The following month, Richard had to travel to New York on business for a week. It was the first time he would be away for so long since adopting Isabella, and she was visibly worried. "What if you don't come back?" she asked the night before the trip. "Isabella, I will always come back. You're my daughter. This is our home, our family. Nothing in the world would prevent me from coming back to you two." "But what if something happens?" Richard sat on her bed and hugged her. "Sweetie, I understand your fear. You lost important people before, and it's natural to be afraid of losing again. But I promise I'll be very careful. I'll call you every day and I'll be back on Saturday right on time. Do you really promise? I promise. And if by chance something unexpected happens and I'm delayed, you have Aunt Carmen, Sister Lucy, and several people who would take care of you. But that won't happen. During the week that Richard was away, Madison took care of Isabella with extra care. She took her to school, helped with homework. They made fudge together, watched movies on the sofa. The two sisters grew even closer during those days. "Maddie," said Isabella one night, "I'm afraid that you'll get tired of me." "Why do you say that?" "Because I'm a lot of work. I need help with lessons. Sometimes I have nightmares, I ask a lot of questions. And you already had a good life before I arrived." Madison stopped watching television and turned to her sister. "Isabella, do you want to know something? Our life became much better after you arrived. Before it was just me and Dad. It was good, but something was missing. You brought joy to our house, laughter, conversations at dinner time. You completed us. Really? Really. And you know something? You're not work. You brought purpose. Taking care of you, seeing you grow, seeing you happy. That gives meaning to everything." On Saturday, Richard returned as promised, loaded with gifts from New York. For Madison, books about child psychology. For Isabella, a Statue of Liberty doll and various postcards of the landmarks he had visited. "I missed you both so much," he said, hugging his two daughters. "The trip was good for business, but the hotel room was very quiet. I was used to your laughter, the conversations at breakfast, the good noise of our family." That same weekend, they decided to do something special, visit the St. Teresa's shelter home. Isabella wanted to show Sister Lucy and the other children how well she was growing. And Richard wanted to make a special donation to the institution. When they arrived there, Isabella was received with a celebration. Anna Claire, now 15 years old and almost leaving the house to live independently, hugged her tightly. "Isabella, how you've grown! And you're so pretty. Anna, I missed you." "How is everyone?" She reunited with Caleb, Peter, Paul, and Melissa. Some faces were new, children who had arrived after she left. But Sister Lucy's affection remained the same. "My child, how happy you are. Your eyes shine in a way I've never seen before," said the nun, watching Isabella play with the younger children. "She brought a special joy to our family," said Richard. "And we want to give back some of the generosity you gave us by taking care of her." Richard handed over a substantial check for renovations to the house and purchase of school supplies. But the bigger surprise came from Isabella. She had prepared a presentation about her experience for the younger children. "I want to tell you that it is possible to find a family," she said, standing in the living room where she once watched television as a resident. "Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it happens in a way we don't expect, but it's always possible. The important thing is to never give up dreaming." A 6-year-old girl newly arrived at the house raised her hand. "But how do we know that the family will really like us?" Isabella crouched down to be at the girl's level. "You'll feel it. When the person looks at you, you'll see in their eyes that they see you as a daughter, not as a child they're helping. And that person will appear when you least expect it, in the most commonplace, as happened with me." During the drive back home, Isabella sat thoughtfully in the back seat of the car. "What are you thinking about, sweetie?" asked Richard. "I'm thinking that I want to go back there more often. I want to help the children who are waiting for a family like I was." "That's a beautiful idea," said Madison. "We can make monthly visits. And I also want to study hard so that one day I can really help. I want to be like Dad, who saw a girl needing help and did something about it." Richard smiled in the rearview mirror. "You already help, Isabella. Just by existing, by being this wonderful person that you are, you already make a difference in many people's lives." The following months brought important changes for the family. Madison started college and was completely involved with her studies. Isabella, inspired by her sister's dedication, tried even harder at school and had discovered a special passion for reading and writing. "Dad, can I show you something?" she said one Sunday afternoon, holding a notebook full of notes. "Of course, sweetie. I wrote a story. It's about a girl who lived on the street and found a family, but it's not exactly my story. It's as if it were another girl in another place." Richard read the first paragraphs and was impressed. Despite her age, Isabella showed an impressive sensitivity and narrative ability. Isabella, this is incredible. You have a lot of talent for writing. Do you really think so? And I do. How about we talk to your teacher about this? Maybe she can help you develop this gift better. The following week, Mrs. Regina, Isabella's teacher, confirmed what Richard had already noticed. Your daughter has an exceptional talent for writing, she said during a meeting. Her essays are always the best in the class, and she has an emotional maturity that is reflected in what she writes. I suggest you enroll her in creative writing workshops. That's how Isabella began to attend, on Saturday mornings, a writing workshop for children and teenagers at the Chicago Cultural Center. There she met other young people who shared the same passion and, under the guidance of teacher Helen, began to improve her skills. Isabella, said Helen after a few weeks, you write with your heart. Your stories have an emotional truth that is rare to find in someone so young. It's because I've already lived through many things, Isabella replied simply. One day, Helen proposed a special challenge for the class. I want you to write about gratitude, but not in an obvious way. Think about small moments, simple gestures that change something in your lives. Isabella didn't have to think much. She wrote about a man who paid for a honey bun for an unknown girl, and how that seemingly small gesture had changed two lives forever. The girl's who found a family, and the man's who discovered that he had much more love to give than he imagined. When she read her story to the class, there was an emotional silence. Helen had tears in her eyes. Isabella, this story needs to be shared with more people. Would you like to participate in a young writers contest? A contest? Yes, it's a national contest for children under 15. This year's theme is precisely small gestures, big changes. Your story fits perfectly. When Isabella told her family about the invitation, they were euphoric. Of course you should participate, said Madison. Your story is beautiful and true. People need to read this. But what if I don't win? Asked Isabella, insecure. Winning isn't the most important thing, said Richard. The important thing is to share your experience, to show other people that small acts of kindness can change lives. And who knows if your story won't inspire other people to make similar gestures, added Madison. Isabella spent the following weeks perfecting her story with Helen's help and her family's support. Each word was carefully chosen, each sentence polished until it shined. On the day to send the story for the contest, Isabella asked to go to the post office alone. She wanted that to be a special moment just for her. I'm sending a piece of my heart, she said to the post office worker, who smiled without fully understanding, but perceiving the importance of that moment for the girl. 2 months later, on a rainy October afternoon, Richard arrived home carrying an official envelope. Isabella, he shouted from the door. A letter arrived for you. The girl ran down the stairs, her heart beating fast. Madison appeared from the kitchen and the three gathered in the living room. You open it, Dad. I'm too nervous, said Isabella. Richard opened the envelope carefully and began to read in silence. His face gradually lit up until it formed a huge smile. And? Asked Madison, impatient. Congratulations, Isabella Santos Oliver. You won first place in the 9 to 12 age category of the National Young Writers Contest. Isabella shouted with joy and jumped into her father's lap. Madison joined the hug, and the three stayed there crying with happiness. There's more, continued Richard, reading the letter. Your story will be published in a national collection, and you'll receive a prize of $5,000, in addition to participating in a ceremony in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., the capital? Asked Isabella, impressed. The capital of the country. You'll meet famous writers, other young winners, and your story will be read by thousands of people. That night, they celebrated with the family's traditional fudge, but Isabella could hardly eat from so much emotion. Dad, she said before going to sleep, do you think the market girl I wrote about in the story could imagine that one day she would win a National Literature Prize? I think that girl knew she was special, even without knowing where it would lead her, replied Richard, giving her a kiss on the forehead. And now you'll be able to inspire other girls who are going through what you went through. That's what I want most, said Isabella, hugging the Hope doll, which still slept with her every night. I want to show them that there's always reason to have hope. A week later, a journalist from Chicago's largest newspaper called wanting to interview the young winner. The article, published on the first page of the culture section, told the real story behind the award-winning fiction. "Girl who lived on the streets wins National Literature Prize," said the headline, accompanied by a photo of Isabella smiling next to Richard and Madison. The repercussion was immediate. Dozens of people called the newspaper, wanting to contact the family. Many were people who wanted to congratulate them. Others were families interested in adopting children, inspired by Isabella's story. But the call that moved them the most came on a Saturday morning. It was Sandra, the market employee who had denied the honey bun to Isabella 2 years before. "I read the article in the newspaper," she said, with a choked voice. "I remember that barefoot girl. I didn't know it was you. I wanted to apologize." "You don't need to apologize," replied Isabella, surprising Sandra with her maturity. "You were doing your job. And if you had given me the bun that day, maybe I wouldn't have met my dad. Everything happened as it was supposed to happen. You're a very special girl. Your story made me rethink many things. From now on, I'll look with different eyes at children who need help." When Isabella hung up the phone, Richard and Madison were looking at her with pride. "How do you manage to be so wise at 9 years old?" asked Madison. "I think when you go through difficult things, you learn to see the world in a different way," replied Isabella. "And you taught me that holding on to anger isn't worth it. It's better to use bad experiences to help other people." That afternoon, they visited the St. Teresa's shelter home once more. Isabella brought a copy of the newspaper article to show the children. "Did you see? Isabella became a famous writer," announced Anna Claire, now 16 years old and preparing to leave the institution. "I'm not famous," laughed Isabella. "I just wrote about something important to me. And now thousands of people will read your story," said Sister Lucy, proud. "How many children do you think you'll be able to help with your words?" Isabella had never thought about it that way. Her story wasn't just her story. It was the story of thousands of children who lived on the streets, who dreamed of a family, who needed to believe that miracles were possible. "Sister Lucy," she said suddenly, "can I ask a question?" "Of course, my child. Do you think I could use the prize money to help the home? To buy books, school supplies, those things?" Sister Lucy's smile was brighter than the sun. "Isabella, you have a heart of gold. But that money is yours. You earned it with your talent. But my talent came from the experiences I lived, and I lived those experiences here, with you. It's fair to share." Richard and Madison exchanged emotional looks. Their 9-year-old daughter was teaching them about generosity. "How about we split it?" suggested Richard. "Half for you to save for your future studies, half to help the home." "That works," agreed Isabella. "That way I can help now and also prepare to help more in the future." That night when they returned home, Isabella sat in the garden where she had planted her jasmine on her first day visiting. The plant had grown and was blooming, filling the air with its sweet perfume. "Thank you," she whispered, not addressing anyone in particular, but the universe as a whole. "Thank you for giving me this family, this life, this chance to help other people." A shooting star passed through the Chicago sky, and Isabella made a wish that her story could touch someone's heart and inspire other acts of kindness, creating a chain of love that would reach children all over the country. She didn't know yet, but her wish was about to come true in a much bigger way than she could imagine. The award ceremony in Washington, D.C. was everything Isabella had dreamed of and more. The convention center was packed with renowned writers, talented young people from across the country, and important literary figures. Isabella, now 10 years old, looked beautiful in her navy blue dress chosen especially for the occasion, with Richard and Madison by her side radiating pride. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the presenter, "the first place in the 9 to 12 age category goes to Isabella Santos Oliver from Chicago, with the story, A Honey Bun and a Miracle." Applause echoed through the auditorium as Isabella walked to the stage. Her legs trembled a little, but her voice came out firm when she thanked for the award. "I want to dedicate this award to all children who are still waiting for their family, and to all adults who can be the miracle in a child's life. Sometimes a small act of kindness can change an entire life." The audience rose in an emotional ovation. In the middle of the crowd, several people wiped tears from their eyes. After the ceremony, many people approached the family wanting to meet Isabella personally. Among them, an elegant grey-haired lady with gentle eyes. "Isabella, my name is Barbara Montgomery. I'm an editor at a major publishing house in Chicago. Your story touched me deeply, and I'd like to talk to you about a special proposal." "What kind of proposal?" asked Richard, curious. "We would like to publish a complete book with Isabella's story, not just the short story that won the prize, but her real story, told by herself. We believe it could be very inspiring for children and adults." Isabella's eyes widened. "A whole book about my life? About your journey, your experiences, and especially about the importance of kindness and family. It would be written in language appropriate for young readers, but would touch people of all ages." "Can I think about it?" asked Isabella. "Of course, dear. There's no rush. Talk it over as a family, and give me an answer when you feel comfortable." On the flight back to Chicago, the three discussed the proposal. Madison, now in her second year of psychology, had an interesting perspective. "Isabella, your story could help many children who go through situations similar to what you went through. And it could also sensitize adults about the importance of adoption and foster care. But I don't want people to feel sorry for me," said Isabella, concerned. "They won't feel sorry," assured Richard. "They'll be inspired. Your story isn't about victimization. It's about overcoming, about love, about how kindness can transform lives. And you would have complete control over what would be written," added Madison. "It would be your version, your words, your perspective." Isabella was thoughtful for a moment. "If I write this book, I want all the proceeds to go to shelter homes and adoption programs. I don't want to make money from my life story." Richard and Madison exchanged glances, once again impressed with the girl's generosity and maturity. "Are you sure about that, sweetie?" asked Richard. "I am. My story is only worth it if it can help other children find their families." Back in Chicago, the repercussions of the prize continued to grow. Isabella had received hundreds of letters from children across the country, many of them in foster care, saying her story had given them hope. One of these letters in particular deeply touched her heart. It was from an 8-year-old girl named Letitia from a shelter in Miami. "Hi, Isabella. I read your story in the newspaper that the lady brought here to the shelter. I'm also waiting for a family to choose me. Sometimes I get sad and think nobody will want me because I talk too much and have crooked teeth. But after I read your story, I thought that maybe I just haven't found the right family yet. Maybe they're looking for a girl exactly like me, with crooked teeth and all. Thank you for helping me have hope again. Your friend, Letitia." Isabella cried when she read the letter and immediately wanted to respond. She sat at her pink desk and began to write. "Dear Letitia, thank you for your beautiful letter. I want you to know that having crooked teeth doesn't make you any less special. Being talkative means you have a lot of love to share. The perfect family for you will love exactly those things that you think are flaws. Keep waiting, keep dreaming, because your family is looking for you too. And when you find each other, it will be the happiest day in everyone's life. Your friend forever, Isabella." This correspondence with Letitia became regular. Isabella personally responded to all the letters she received from children in foster care. Richard had set up a small office in the backyard, just so she could organize all this correspondence. "Dad," she said one afternoon, "how many letters came this week?" 43, he replied, impressed. "Your story really touched many people. I want to answer all of them. Each child who took the trouble to write to me deserves a response." It was during this intense period of correspondence that Isabella made the final decision about the book. She called Barbara Montgomery and accepted the proposal. "But I have one condition," she said on the phone. "I want to include some of the letters I received from other children in the book, of course without identifying them. I think that can show that there are many children waiting for families." "That's a wonderful idea, Isabella. It will make the book even more meaningful." The writing process for the book took 6 months. Isabella worked every afternoon after school, with the support of Helen, her writing workshop teacher, who had become a kind of literary mentor. "Isabella," said Helen during one of the sessions, "you have a rare gift. You can talk about pain without sounding dramatic, about joy without being superficial, and about hope without being naive. That's what makes your writing so powerful." During this period, the family's life continued. Madison was excelling in college, and had begun a volunteer internship at an NGO that worked with children in vulnerable situations. Richard had expanded his company and was involved in social projects inspired by his own daughter. "You know what I discovered, Isabella?" he said during a dinner. "After you came into our lives, I began to notice much more the children who need help. It's as if you had opened my eyes to a reality that I didn't see before." "Is that good or bad?" she asked. "It's great. It means I can help more people." One day, Isabella received a letter different from the others. It was from a man named Carl from Denver. "Dear Isabella, I read your story in the newspaper and was very moved. I'm a widower, 45 years old, and always wanted to have children, but it never happened naturally. Your story inspired me to seek information about adoption. Today I am starting the process to adopt a child. I want you to know that your courage in sharing your experience may have changed the life of a child that I don't even know yet. Thank you for showing me that love doesn't depend on blood ties. Carl Mendoza." When Isabella read this letter to the family, everyone was moved. "Do you realize the reach of what you're doing?" asked Madison. "Your story is inspiring adults to adopt children. It's creating new families." "That's what I want most," replied Isabella. "For other children to find their families as I found mine." 3 months later, Carl wrote again. He had adopted a 7-year-old boy named Gabriel and sent a photo of the two smiling together. "Look at this, Dad," said Isabella, showing the photo. "Gabriel found a family because of our story." "Actually," corrected Richard, "Gabriel found a family because of your courage to share our story." The book, A Honey Bun and a Miracle, Isabella's True Story, was launched on a special night at Chicago's main bookstore. The event was packed with a line at the door and people standing in the aisles. Isabella, now 10.5 years old, climbed onto the small improvised stage wearing her favorite dress, the same one she had worn at the ceremony in Washington, D.C., and looked at the audience full of expectant faces. "When I was on the street alone and hungry, I never imagined that one day I would be here, launching a book about my life," she began with a firm voice. "But the most incredible thing isn't having written a book. It's knowing that maybe a child who is going through what I went through will read my story and won't give up on dreaming of a family." The audience applauded emotionally. In the middle of the crowd, Isabella recognized several dear faces: Sister Lucy and the children from the shelter home, Mrs. Regina, her teacher, Helen from the writing workshop, Carmen, the social worker who had taken care of her adoption process. But it was at the end of the event, when people approached to have their books signed, that the most special encounter of the night happened. A woman in her 30s approached shyly, carrying a girl of approximately 5 years old in her arms. "Isabella," she said with a choked voice, "I'm Mary, and this is Sophie. We read your story 6 months ago, and it inspired me to adopt Sophie. We wanted to meet you personally to say thank you." Isabella bent down to be at Sophie's level, a girl with curly hair and big eyes who observed her with curiosity. "Hi, Sophie. How are you liking your new family?" "Thank you very much. Mommy Mary makes chocolate cake every Sunday, and I have a room all to myself with a princess bed," replied Sophie, excited. "How wonderful. And do you like to read stories?" "I do. Mommy said you wrote a book. Is that true?" "It is. I wrote about how I found my family, just like you found yours." Mary approached Isabella. "You can't imagine how your story changed my life. I was always afraid to adopt, thought it would be too difficult. But when I read about your father Richard, about how you became a real family, I realized that love doesn't need to come from blood." Isabella turned to look for Richard in the crowd. When their eyes met, she waved for him to approach. "Dad, come meet Mary and Sophie. They're a new family inspired by our story." Richard approached and greeted Mary and Sophie warmly. "It's an honor to meet you. How are you adjusting?" "Very well," replied Mary. "Sophie is the light of my life. I don't know how I lived so long without her." "I completely understand that feeling," said Richard, looking at Isabella with tenderness. "There are children who come into our lives, and we realize they were always missing. We just didn't know it." That night, when they returned home, Isabella was radiant but reflective. "Dad, do you remember when I asked you why you helped me that day at the market?" "I do. Now I understand that it wasn't just you who helped me. I also helped you and Maddie to be a more complete family. And now our story is helping other people to form their families." It's like a chain of goodness, added Madison. One good action generates other good actions. Exactly, agreed Richard, and it all started with a simple gesture at the market. It makes me think about how many opportunities to do good pass by us every day, and sometimes we don't even notice. That night, before going to sleep, Isabella wrote in her diary, now an elegant notebook she had received from the publisher. Today was the most special day of my life, not because I launched a book, but because I met Sophie and Mary and realized that our story is really making a difference. How many other children will find their families because of what we lived? How many other parents like mine will decide to open their hearts? I think that's the real miracle, when a love story inspires other love stories. Thank you, universe, for allowing me to be part of this. The following month, the book entered the country's bestseller list. But for Isabella, the greatest success wasn't in the sales numbers, but in the letters that continued to arrive every day from all over America, telling stories of families that were formed inspired by her experience. One of these letters would reveal a secret that would forever change Isabella's perspective on her own story, showing that fate had woven an even more complex and beautiful plot than she could ever imagine. It was a sunny November morning when the letter arrived. Isabella, now 11 years old, was having breakfast before going to school when Richard appeared in the kitchen, holding an envelope different from the others. This one didn't have the childish stamp of the letters she usually received, nor the letterhead of publishers or newspapers. Sweetie, a letter arrived addressed to you, but it's from a lady from Springfield. Her name is Constance Smith. Isabella took the envelope with curiosity. The paper was simple, the handwriting careful but shaky, like that of someone older. I don't know anyone by that name, she said, carefully opening the letter. Dear Isabella, the letter began, my name is Constance Smith. I'm 67 years old and have worked for 35 years as a cleaning lady at the Whole Foods market on North Avenue. I read your book and cried from beginning to end. I need to tell you something very important. I was working that day when you tried to buy the honey bun. I saw everything. Isabella stopped reading and looked at Richard, surprised. Dad, this lady was there that day. Joyce Tomatis, keep reading, sweetie. I saw when you arrived at the market, barefoot and with dirty clothes, but with your eyes shining with hope. I saw you choose the honey bun with such care, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. My heart ached, because you reminded me very much of my own granddaughter, who had left this world a few months earlier. Isabella felt a lump in her throat. Madison, who had come down for breakfast, approached to listen. When the cashier refused your purchase, I wanted to do something, but I didn't have extra money with me. I've worked at the market for years, I earn little, and that month was especially tight because my daughter was unemployed and I was helping with her household expenses. I stayed there cleaning the nearby shelves, praying that some miracle would happen for you. And then Dad appeared, murmured Isabella, moved. And then an angel in a grey suit appeared. I saw when he approached you. I saw the kindness in his eyes. I saw how he talked to you. But what you don't know is what happened after you left. I ran after you. Isabella's eyes widened. She ran after us. Right, Annie? Yes, dear. I needed to see if you would be okay. I hid behind a car in the parking lot and heard your entire conversation. I heard when you said it was your birthday, when he asked about your family, when you explained that you slept on the street, and I saw when he made that call to the social worker. Tears began to roll down Isabella's face. Richard approached her, equally moved. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about you, praying that that man was a truly good person, that you would find the happiness you deserved. For months I thought about you too, wondering if everything had worked out. And now she knows, whispered Madison, wiping her own tears. When I read your story in the newspaper last year, I almost fainted. It was you, the honey bun girl. And when I bought your book and read your whole story, I cried so much that my daughter thought I had gone crazy. But they were tears of joy, dear Isabella. Joy to know that my prayer had been answered. Isabella interrupted the reading and looked at Richard. Dad, did you know someone was watching us that day? Nice to know, sweetie. I had no idea. Keep reading, asked Madison, but there is something very important that I need to tell you. Something that neither you nor your family knows. When I was young, I had a boyfriend who moved to Chicago for work. We wrote to each other by letters, but one day the letters stopped coming. I discovered years later that he had married and started a family. That man's name was John Santos Oliver. Isabella stopped breathing for a moment. Richard turned pale. Dad, that's Grandpa John's name, isn't it? It is, he answered with a shaky voice. Continue reading. John Santos Oliver was your grandfather, dear Isabella. The man I fell in love with in my youth, but whom life separated from me. He didn't know, but I followed his life from afar. I knew when he got married, when he had children, when the children grew up. And one of those children was Richard, your father. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. The three looked at each other, trying to process the extraordinary revelation. This means that, on that day at the market, I was seeing the grandson of the man I loved being kind to an orphaned girl. But it wasn't just any orphaned girl. It was the girl that destiny had chosen to be the granddaughter of my John, even if not by blood, but by heart. Isabella let the letter fall on the table and ran to hug Richard. Dad, this isn't a coincidence. This was the universe conspiring for me to find my family. There's more, said Madison, picking up the letter. Can I continue reading? Isabella nodded, still hugging her father. Dear Isabella, I never had children of my own, but I always felt that you were special to me since that day. Now I understand why. Destiny wanted me to witness the moment when the granddaughter of the man I loved would find the love of a family. It wanted me to see the cycle of love completing itself. I can't believe this, murmured Richard. My father always talked about a girlfriend from his youth in Springfield. A girl named Constance who was very special, but whom he had to leave behind when he came to work in Chicago. And she never forgot him, said Madison, continuing the reading. Isabella, I want you to know that 3 years ago, when your grandfather John passed away, I went to his funeral. I saw you there, a beautiful girl next to a man in a grey suit whom I immediately recognized as the one who had helped you at the market. At that moment, everything made sense to me. Isabella vaguely remembered her grandfather's funeral. It had been a very sad day, and she was focused on consoling Richard, who was very shaken by the loss of his father. But I didn't say anything that day because I thought it wasn't appropriate. How could I explain that I was a stranger who had witnessed you two meeting? How could I say that I had loved Richard's father 60 years ago? I kept this secret in my heart until today. Why did she decide to tell now? Asked Isabella. Madison continued reading. I decided to write now because after reading your book, I realized that you believe in the power of stories to unite people. And our story, mine, yours, your father's, and your grandfather John's, is a story about how love finds mysterious ways to perpetuate itself through generations. There's one more thing, said Madison, reaching the end of the letter. Isabella, I would very much like to meet you in person. If you and your family agree, I would like to pay you a visit. I have some old photos of your grandfather John when he was young, and also some letters he wrote to me. I think your father would like to see them. And I would like to hug the girl who brought so much joy to the family of the man I always carried in my heart. With all my affection, Constance Smith. When Madison finished reading, the three remained silent for a few minutes, absorbing the magnitude of that revelation. Dad, Isabella finally said, this means that Mrs. Constance is also part of our family, in a special way. It does, agreed Richard, still moved. And it means that on that day at the market, there was much more at stake than I could ever imagine. Shall we invite her to come visit us? Asked Madison. Of course, said Isabella immediately. She needs to see our house, see how happy we are, know that Grandpa John's love continues alive in our family. That same afternoon, Richard called Constance. The conversation lasted more than an hour, with the two crying several times as they shared memories about John Santos Oliver and about how their lives had intertwined in such an extraordinary way. Mrs. Constance, said Richard, you are very welcome in our home whenever you want to come. Isabella is anxious to meet you, and I would very much like to hear your stories about my father. And I would very much like to meet my John's family, she replied with a voice choked with emotion. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Constance arrived at the Santos Oliver family home. She was a small and delicate lady, white hair tied in a bun, dressed simply but impeccably. In her eyes the same kindness that had observed Isabella with affection on that distant day at the market. Mrs. Constance, shouted Isabella, running to hug her. You're exactly as I imagined. My dear girl, said Constance, returning the hug with tenderness. How you've grown! And how beautiful you are, Richard approached and greeted the lady with respect and affection. It's an honor to finally meet you, Mrs. Constance. My father spoke of you with great affection. Your father was a wonderful man, she replied, her eyes filling with tears, and from what I see, that goodness passed on to you. During lunch, Constance told stories about John when he was young, about how they met at a summer fair in Springfield, about the plans they made together before life separated them. She showed old photos where John appeared young and smiling, and some letters he had written to her before moving to Chicago. "Look, Dad," said Isabella, observing a photo. "Grandpa John has the same smile as you, and you have the same smile as both of them," added Madison. "It's incredible how love creates similarities even without blood ties." In the afternoon, they sat in the garden where Isabella had planted her jasmine on her first day visiting, now a lush and flowering plant. "Mrs. Constance," said Isabella, "can I ask a question?" "Of course, dear. Weren't you sad when you saw that Grandpa John had married someone else?" Constance smiled with wisdom. "At first, yes, but then I understood that true love wants the good of the loved person. John was happy with your grandmother, had wonderful children, built a beautiful family. How could I be sad about that? And now? Now I see that love never dies, it just transforms. The love I felt for John has transformed into the affection I have for you, his family. It's as if the circle had closed." When it was time for Constance to return to Springfield, everyone was emotional. "Mrs. Constance," said Richard, "you will always have a place in our family. Would you consider yourself a special grandmother to Isabella?" "It would be an honor," she replied, hugging the girl. "Isabella, you brought meaning to the story of my heart. Now I know that all the paths of my life led me to be in that market that day, to witness the beginning of your new life." "And will you continue sending letters?" asked Isabella. "Every week, dear. And you will always be welcome in Springfield." That night, after Constance left, Isabella sat in her room to write in her diary. "Today I discovered that my story is even more magical than I imagined. It wasn't just fate that put me in Dad's path that day at the market. It was Grandpa John's love, which even after leaving this world continued to take care of our family. It was Mrs. Constance's heart, which kept that love for 60 years, and could see it transform into joy when I found my family." 3 months later, Isabella gave a special presentation at school about her story. But this time she included the revelation about Constance and John. "I learned that love is the most powerful force in the universe," she said to the attentive class. "It never dies. It just transforms and finds new ways to express itself. The love that my grandfather felt for Mrs. Constance transformed into the love that my father felt for me when he saw me needing help. And that love created a family that now spreads more love throughout the world." The teacher and students were moved by the story. Many of them were inspired to write about their own families and about acts of kindness they had witnessed. At the end of the year, Isabella's book had sold more than 200,000 copies across America. All the money raised was allocated to shelter homes and adoption programs. Hundreds of children found their families inspired by her story. On a December afternoon, Christmas Eve, the family was gathered in the living room decorating the Christmas tree when the doorbell rang. It was the mailman bringing a special delivery. "For the Santos Oliver family," he said, delivering a large package. Inside the package, there were dozens of letters from children from all over America who had been adopted during that year. Each one thanked Isabella for having shared her story and inspiring their new families to find each other. "Look at this one, Dad," said Isabella, opening a letter. "It's from Letitia from Miami. Remember the girl who wrote to me about her crooked teeth? She was adopted by a family who said they fell in love with her smile. And this one is from Gabriel, the boy who was adopted by Carl from Denver," said Madison, reading another letter. "They say they are very happy together." Richard looked at his 2 daughters reading the letters with such joy and felt his heart overflow with gratitude. "Girls," he said, "do you realize what we've accomplished together? It started with a 50-cent coin and a simple act of kindness, and it turned into a chain of love that reached hundreds of families across the country." "It wasn't just us, Dad," said Isabella. "It was everyone who believed in the power of love. Mrs. Constance, who kept love in her heart for 60 years. Grandpa John, who taught us through example. Sister Lucy, who takes care of the children. Carmen, who helps with adoptions, all the people who bought the book, all the families who decided to adopt. It's a great chain of love. That night, Christmas Eve, Isabella made her traditional wish to the brightest star in the Chicago sky. But this time she didn't ask for anything for herself. "Thank you," she whispered from her pink bedroom window, "for allowing me to be part of something so beautiful. And please continue to look after all the children who are still waiting to find their families. May each of them have their miracle, as I had mine." On Christmas morning, the family woke up to a special surprise. Constance had arrived from Springfield to spend the holidays with them, bringing new photos, traditional recipes, and lots of affection. "Isabella," she said during breakfast, "I have a very special gift for you." It was a small carved wooden box. "This box belonged to your grandfather John. He gave it to me when we were dating, and I kept it all these years. Now I want it to be yours." Inside the box, there was a yellowed paper with John's handwriting. "True love never ends. It only finds new ways to manifest itself through generations." Isabella hugged Constance with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Grandma Constance. I'll keep it forever." "Grandma Constance?" asked the lady, surprised. "That's how I want to call you, if you'll allow it. You're the grandmother of my heart." And so on a sunny Christmas morning in Chicago, the Santos Oliver family was complete. Richard, Madison, Isabella, and now Constance, united not just by blood or by law, but by the purest and truest love. 2 years later, when Isabella turned 13, she received the greatest birthday present she could imagine: a letter from the Department of Justice communicating that her story had inspired a new law facilitating adoption processes in America. Isabella's law, as it became known, streamlined documentation and offered more psychological support for adoptive families and children in the adoption process. "Dad," she said, holding the official letter, "my story became a law." "Your story became much more than that, sweetie," replied Richard, proud. "It became hope for thousands of children and families across the country." That night, Isabella wrote in her diary for the last time as a child. For the next day, she would turn 13. "Tomorrow I turn 13, and I can't believe everything that has happened since that day at the market. When I turned 7, I was a lost girl with a coin in my hand, and today I am a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter of the heart, a writer, and mainly a person who learned that love is